You know, back in the Apollo era, we did something that felt impossible. We walked on the moon. But here's the crazy thing. For all those iconic footprints, we had basically no idea what was inside it. Imagine that. It's like walking up to this incredible mansion, but you only ever see the front porch.
So, what is the moon actually made of? How do you even begin to answer that? I mean, you can't exactly drill a core sample from 250,000 miles away, right? Well, it turns out you have to learn how to listen very, very carefully.
And the answer came from these incredible instruments the Apollo astronauts left behind. It was called the Passive Seismic Experiment. Basically, it was a network of 4 seismometers planted by missions 12, 14, 15, and 16. Their whole job was just to sit there in the total silence of space and listen. Listen for the tiny vibrations, the moonquakes, that happen when things like meteoroids smash into the surface.
So they set up this whole network, right? And when the data finally started to trickle in, it was weird. Like really weird. Not at all what anyone was expecting. The moon just didn't behave like the Earth. When something hit it, it did something strange.
Okay, take a look at this. This is an actual seismogram from the moon, and it shows you exactly what they were up against. See, on Earth, an earthquake happens, you get a sharp jolt, it shakes for a bit, and then it fades away pretty quickly. But on the moon? Oh no. A signal would arrive, and it would just keep on going. And going for hours. It just built up into this long, chaotic, messy hum. You can imagine how confusing that was for the scientists.
The scientists who wrote the paper we're looking at today, they had the perfect description for it. They said it had a reverberating nature and an extremely long duration. It was like the moon would literally ring like a bell. A single impact would happen, and the entire moon would just hum, vibrating with that energy for what felt like forever.
So that's the big question, right? Why did the moon ring for so long? And more importantly, how on earth are you supposed to map out what's inside the moon if every single signal you get is this scrambled, echoing mess? It's like trying to listen to one person whisper in a giant cave where every sound bounces around for an hour. It's just noise.
Well, the leading theory was pretty cool. They figured the culprit was the moon's surface itself. I mean, think about it. It's been getting pummeled by meteorites for billions of years, so that top layer is just completely pulverized, fractured rock and debris. And this scattering zone, as they called it, was acting like a giant hall of mirrors for the seismic waves, just bouncing them around and around and around, creating that crazy, long signal. And here's how they proved it. This is brilliant. They did a lab experiment. First, on the left, they sent a signal through a solid plate. See that? A nice, clean, sharp signal. Then they took a similar plate, but drilled holes and cut grooves in it to mimic that fractured lunar surface. And look at the result on the right. Boom! You get that messy, long, lunar-like signal. They'd found their smoking.
Okay, so they figured out why the signals were so messy. But that's just step 1, right? The problem is still there. If natural impacts from meteoroids are too random and create too much noise, what do you do? Well, the scientists came up with a solution that was, frankly, just awesome. They decided to make their own moonquakes.
This is my favorite part of the whole story. The plan was to take the huge, spent rocket stages from the Saturn V and the used parts of the lunar modules and just crash them, on purpose, right into the moon. I mean, think about that. They knew the exact mass, the exact velocity, and they knew precisely when and where it was going to hit. It was the ultimate controlled experiment.
And we're not talking about a small tap here. These were massive impacts. You've got objects weighing around 14,000 kilograms. That's like 2 big elephants, slamming into the moon at over 2.5 kilometers a second. The amount of energy we're talking about is just colossal.
And did it work? Oh, it worked. The result was absolutely breathtaking. Just look at this data. Gone is that messy, chaotic hum. Instead, you get these beautiful, clean, clear signals arriving. See each of those lines? That's a different man-made impact recorded by a different seismometer. For the very first time, they could see the main wave hit, and then, this is the crucial part, they could see the echoes bouncing back from deep inside the moon. This was the breakthrough they needed.
So now they had it. They had clean signals. And by timing exactly how long it took for those waves to travel down, hit something, and reflect back up, they could start to build a picture. A portrait of the moon's hidden interior started to emerge, one layer at a time.
So, piece number 1. The first big echo they saw came from a boundary about 60 kilometers down. What was it? It was the bottom of the lunar crust. So the moon has a crust that's about 60 kilometers thick.
Just to give you some perspective, the crust we're standing on here on Earth is usually more like 30 to 50 kilometers thick. Okay, so what's below that crust? Well, the waves told them. As soon as the seismic waves passed that 60-kilometer mark, they suddenly sped way up to about 8 kilometers per second. And a big jump in speed like that tells you one thing. You've hit a totally different, much denser material. This was the lunar mantle, a huge, solid layer of rock that scientists call the lithosphere.
But wait, there's more. The story doesn't stop there. When they looked at the signals from really, really deep moonquakes, they noticed something else was going on. Deeper inside, some of the seismic waves started to slow down and get kind of muffled. The scientific term is attenuated. It's like the waves were trying to push through something thick and goopy, like molasses. Something else was happening way down in the heart of the moon.
And here it is, the big reveal. After all that work, all that incredible detective work, they had the answer. The moon isn't just one solid lump of rock. Nope, it's a complex world with layers, kind of like the Earth. You've got that thick crust on the outside, then a solid rocky mantle, the lithosphere, and then, deep inside, you have this softer, partially molten zone, an asthenosphere. And that's what was muffling the waves.
So let's wrap up the key takeaways here. Basically, by being incredibly clever and turning leftover rocket parts into scientific tools, the Apollo team figured out that the moon has layers, just like our own planet. They figured out it has a crust about 60 kilometers thick. Below that, a solid mantle, or lithosphere, and then deep down inside, a softer, kind of gooey, partially molten zone, the asthenosphere, which is also where moonquakes seem to come from. All of this, figured out by crashing things into it and listening to the echoes. Just incredible.
But you know how science works, right? Every answer just leads to more questions. This amazing data gave them a crystal clear picture down to about 1,000 kilometers. But it couldn't see all the way to the very center. So while they'd mapped out all these amazing layers, this incredible 1974 study left us with one huge, lingering question. A question we're still trying to answer today. Does the moon have a solid iron core?